Hey, how are you?
I'm doing pretty well. How are you?
Pretty good. Your school year must be winding down.
Yeah, it is. We just finished with our finals and commencement and all that last week. So I'm now back into composer mode, although I'm also the chair of the school music. So still have to do some other summer stuff. So I'm happy that I can devote more time to composition now.
When you say you're going to devote more time to composition on an average week during this period when you're not so involved with the college, how much time would you spend? Is it something you'd spend 8 hours a day on, or does that not work for you?
Oh God, no, I can't do 8 hours a day. It'd be exhausting. An ideal day might look like 2 hours in the morning, maybe two and a half if I'm feeling really or really inspired. It's probably better. Then some time off in the afternoon doing demanding stuff. And then I could come back to it in the evening, do certain aspects of it. Perhaps, for an hour, hour and a half, something like that. So it could end up being a total of 4 to 5 hours in a really good day,
Okay.
but it's broken up.
Is there a particular zone that you need to get into in order to do it?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think in an ideal world, yes. Sometimes I am somewhat strapped for time, so I just gotta push ahead and hope for the best. But yeah, I mean, ideally, if I could even, maybe I should make this a habit of take a couple minutes just to get into a kind of zone. I mean, it does depend. When I'm starting a new piece, for example, I frequently like to use something outside of music as a form of inspiration, whether it's something literary or something visual or some kind of majestic natural scene, something like that. There will be times when I'm sort of taking that all in. It might mean staring at a picture or a landscape or reading a poem or something. An ideal way to get back into it would be to have that sort of reflective, intuitive time. But sometimes I just have to barrel right ahead.
All right, when you barrel right ahead and you go back and look at it,
Yeah.
you identify those portions that you created that you said, geez, that was when I was barreling ahead and not really in the zone. Is that apparent to you?
No. In
Okay.
fact, sometimes when I barrel right ahead, what comes out is amazing. And sometimes when I just am like a steamroller, it's not so good. And really, it does depend. Yeah, the next day will reflect on what I've already written, and it will be sometimes great and sometimes not. But the conditions under which I actually created, they don't always matter.
Have you ever had the occasion when you've been out doing something in the real world, shopping or eating at McDonald's or stuff like that, and you say to yourself, geez, I have to leave because I've got this bug and I've got to sit down and write.
Right. Yeah, sounds like Luciano Berio when he was at a party. I guess there's this story, and he's like, I must go compose. And maybe that's apocryphal. I don't know if it actually happened, but there have been many times when I'm on a long drive when I'll get musical ideas. I won't always listen to music on a drive. Sometimes I will. It depends on the circumstances. If I'm fresh in the morning and I'm alone, I will sometimes get musical ideas. So then I will try to remember them until I stop. And since this is a public podcast, I will say that I always stop at a rest stop and then record myself singing them. But that way, at least I can get information or the musical information out somehow. I can generate things. Sometimes, if I'm out in the natural world, if I'm on a hike or if I'm behold a beautiful place, some music will come to me. And again, the phone is great. You can just record yourself singing, but I can sing what I want to record it. And then I've had musical dreams. So I have there was this one time I love telling people about it. It's sort of a frustrating story, but this one time I dreamt the most incredible, it was a symphony, the best thing I had ever, ever written. It was in a dream. I still remember the outlines of it, but it was fully fleshed out, fully specific. All, I don't know, 42 minutes of it, the whole thing. It was right there. But it's not so right there in my mind now that I would be able to actually sit down and recreate the whole thing just like that. But it was incredible. There's this landscape from some other world, and the colors were like colors you wouldn't normally see on Earth. I mean, there were colors, but they weren't, the natural greens and blues we'd see here. And I know this sounds like a drug trip or something, but this was just a natural dream. This no drugs involved. This was just real. And it's like I was in some other exoplanet, some other universe with some other sun or star, and there it was. And I still remember it very vividly. I'd probably be able to sketch the scenes. I know I could sketch the symphony, but I wish I would have an opportunity to write a symphony, which I don't at a lot of, concertos or concert openers, which, okay, I'll take them. But I, it's not as common to program a symphony by a living composer. It's a big commitment, etc., with an orchestra. And it's a big risk on their part. But someday maybe I'll be able to write this symphony. And I know it's in there. It's just accessing it. I've talked about this a lot. In German, they call it Sehnsucht, or it's a yearning for a time or a place that you've actually never been to. But I know that there's this sort of metaphysical place out there where some of these musical ideas live, and it's almost like they're not mine, but they are, and I can access them sometimes in dreams, which again, this sounds really spacey and strange, but it's very real and it has happened. The symphony is the big deal, but there have been other snippets or tunes or musical material that's come to me.
Certainly is interesting, and it certainly is interesting that you can actually capture something that was in that dream because most of us lose our dreams very quickly.
Yes, well, I have the Planet's Odyssey piano concerto. I could totally go in another direction there.
I read on the internet, so it has to be true,
Of
that
course.
you received a commission to write a piano concerto for the 250th anniversary of the US.
So this is for the Endless Mountain Music Festival,
Where's that
which
located, by the way?
it is in northern Pennsylvania, north, central, northeast, in that direction. And it is incredible, beautiful area up there. And it's going to be summer of 2026 when it will be premiered in July. So, of course, that goes with America 250, 1776, of course. And the grant is based in Pennsylvania, or is relevant to Pennsylvania, and it is for a Pennsylvania composer. And they submitted the grant in part upon a recommendation from Jeffrey Beagle, the pianist, and he recommended me for it. And then the granting agency did indeed give the Endless Mountain Music Festival the grant. And then a portion of the grant is to commission me to create this piano concerto. And so I'm going to be incorporating specific folk tune theme of music that well, it has an interesting story. So the music was sung and performed in around the American Revolution in Pennsylvania. And it's a tune that I researched, and it's called Pennsylvania Tune. And but actually, the tune comes from a much older Scottish tradition that Scottish immigrants brought over in the 1700s and thereabouts. And so I'm using that tune because it was sung during the American Revolution in Pennsylvania. That as a way to link back to the American Revolution. And so it'll be the leitmotif throughout the concerto is meant to be upbeat and celebratory, of course, and it's celebrating, in my mind, what America stands for, which is democracy and the ideals of the American Revolution. I'm very excited to be writing this, and I was working on it this morning already. So
All
I've
right.
been working on it for a little while.
All right. What's the name of the tune, by the way?
So the tune is called Pennsylvania Song, and it is originally entitled Sandy O'er the Lea, which is the actual Scottish tune that it comes from. But there is a rhyme, a ballad called Pennsylvania Song.
We have a fair amount of music that's Americana. What comes to mind is some of the stuff Morton Gould did, and where he pasted together a lot of tunes from the Revolutionary period
Mhm.
and probably later. But to me, it's kind of trite
Yeah.
because it's a statement of the tune and they play it, and then it gets one of those transitions by changing the chords or changing the or something to transition into the next song. How do you avoid doing that kind of thing?
There are a couple. The terms of the commission require that it has to be related to Pennsylvania and some kind of spirit of the revolution. So, one of the things I wanted to do was to choose a tune that would be recognizable as such, but is not something that people like Yankee Doodle or Chester or Simple Gifts. I mean, Simple Gifts, I like the tune, but that I think is from Maine. So, and Copeland certainly already used that. So I did want something to be specific to Pennsylvania. Then, in terms of the musical material, I think it's a great starting off point. I'm not far enough into the concerto to know exactly how it's all going to look at this point. It needs to be memorable, but that's not what it's all about. It needs to convey a theme because it's celebrating something specific. But then, in terms of the development of the material, the musical pastiche that could come about, can be different emotional qualities involved in the tune. So the tune itself is pretty straightforward. It's pretty upbeat. It's pretty happy. I'm not someone to write a piece of music that has just one emotional dimension. I think democracy is complicated. And for me to say, I think, I don't, it's not even, I think, it's a fact. Democracy is complicated. American democracy has a complicated history. Democracy faces challenges throughout history and different power grabbing throughout eras. There's an inherent tension between the concept of power for all the people and then, getting stuff done because it has to be traded and representatives and the different branches of government. So there's complexity there. The American ideals as a foundation are great to an extent, but remember, it was within the context of the 18th century, the 1700s, 18th century, within philosophical and political contexts of those times. And then there's the evolving history throughout from then until now. So a purely happy-go-lucky tune does not capture that complexity. My composition, while inspired by the tune and inspired by ideals of democracy, it is inspired by the ideals, but it also is a reflection on the complexity and challenges that arise through managing lots of people in society through a long time. So, given that the concerto is not just going to, here's the tune, here's variations. It's going to be a personal reflection on various tensions involved in the subject matter.
I mean, I understand what you're saying. Doesn't sound easy. And sometimes complexity can be the enemy in music. Sometimes, if you're
Yeah.
not careful.
Well, it's a balance, right? So, in a musical narrative, you have to have tension and release, in my view. Now, not all composers even agree on that. Just like in a written narrative, I think for something to be meaningful to people, there needs to be an established vocabulary that they can hold on to, and then there need to be changes in form. There needs to be build-ups, climaxes, etc. And the way I like to develop tension is through various conflicting materials, whether it's harmonic, timbral, the piano technique, virtuosity of the pianist. Jeffrey Beagle's an incredibly virtuosic pianist. And then the different sparks of orchestration. And so there's going to be substantial tension and release so that yes, there will be simplicity and yes, there will be complexity. And then there's nothing new under the sun as far as composition is concerned, just like it is with literature, especially now that we've had John Cage's 4 minutes and 33 seconds. And, when we go as far as to music that's just about nothing, or the sounds in the ambient concert hall or whatever. So, when we've gone so far as the modernists have gone, I think the new paths forward are the new stories we tell. You can always tell a new story. So there can be a personal reflection and meditation on complexity of America at 250 with a high degree of and release that balances the tightrope of simplicity with complexity so that the audience isn't lost. Because, the audience has one chance to hear it. And unless it becomes a staple of the repertoire, which may it be, but I have no control over that or limited control. So I've got to win people over really compellingly on one hearing.
Well, that certainly is a small task.
Of course it is. I mean, but that's actually for every piece,
Yeah,
right?
I know.
I
I
mean,
think as we talked before, the most frequently occurring number of performances of any new piece is one. So I get the notion that you want to you want to have the audience walk away saying, "I want to hear it again." So I get what you're saying. Is it going to be the traditional three movement? It is.
yeah, this one will be three movements. So my previous one for Jeffrey, The Planet's Odyssey, was a theme and variations. But this one is going to be the traditional three movement.
So be kind of fast, slow, fast, or
Hmm.
loud, soft, loud.
I don't know about soft.
Okay.
It will be fast, slow, fast. It's a psychologically very satisfying model. There's a reason why people keep doing it over and over again. For America 250, we still have a lot to celebrate. Despite all of the struggles and tensions, and I mean, there's no doubt there are a lot of divisions in our society. I mean, I can't ignore that. That's just reality. But we still have a lot to celebrate. And so intending for there to be at least a component that is upbeat and celebratory and we've come a long way since 250 or more years ago when look at the French Revolution where their way of dealing with problems was to behead people. I think are at least a little better.
Right. Right.